Dear friends and colleagues, I'm so happy. These are the best days of my year. That is the EfD Annual Meeting. And we haven't had these days for many years now due to COVID. So I'm so happy to see you. And I'll tell you exactly why and how much in a few minutes. But before we do that, we will get this annual meetings officially opened. And we will start with our local host here, Professor Edward Bale. And he is the Dean of the School of Economics and also the Center Director for the EfD Center here at Makerere University. Edward, please.
High Excellency, the Ambassador of Sweden, the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, the representative of the Honorable Minister of Water and Environment, development partners and the EfD Advisory Board, the Director of the EfD Global Hub, and the esteemed delegates from the EfD network, members from the place, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all. On behalf of the EfD Makerere Center and on my own behalf, I take this wonderful opportunity to welcome you to the Pearl of Africa and specifically to the Speak Resort Munyonyo, but most importantly, to Makerere University. The EfD Makerere Center would like to appreciate the EfD Global Hub and the entire EfD network for the confidence you put in us by establishing an EfD center at Makerere University. And this is coming to 4 years ago. This confidence has been reinforced by giving us an opportunity to host the EfD Annual Meeting, the very first physical meeting after 2 years of COVID-19 disruptions. Allow me to note that the EfD Annual Meeting is not any other small meeting that is very easy to organize or to host. And myself, I observed the level and standard of EfD when I personally attended previous annual meetings, one in Ethiopia, Vietnam, and Colombia. And therefore, when we were chosen to take up this task, we thought it was enormous, and we didn't know how we could accomplish it. However, I think we have moved some miles. We are not yet there, but I hope we have managed those few miles we have moved. However, we want to say that it has been a great honor and experience, and there are many lessons that we have learned in the process. I want to appreciate the support we have received from the EfD Global Hub. Gunnar, Sana, Franklin, and June, you have been such great movers of things and quick decision makers. This has really supported us to move on. I would like to thank the Makerere University management. The EfD Marc Center is having that name because it is hosted at the great Makerere University. And therefore, allow me to thank my Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, for the support he has given us while organizing this event. Some of the service providers required his signature to give us trust to have this one pulled off. But most importantly, I want to appreciate him for his distinguished vision for internationalization, collaborations, and partnerships as important pillars that must support a research-led university. Allow me at this time also to appreciate my local organizing committee, Hilda and the team, Professor Johnny and others. Thank you very much for what you have done. And I know that you are still available to make our delegates comfortable throughout their stay in Uganda. Uganda is known for the beautiful weather, food, and people, and we are hopeful that you are going to enjoy your stay. We are committed to making each one of you very comfortable throughout your stay in Uganda. The meeting is running up to 26 September here at Speak Resort. However, we have arranged various dinner outings to let our guests have a real feel of the Pearl of Africa in terms of nature, in terms of traditional dishes, in terms of music, and some dance where possible. The very first engagement outside the hectic research and others starts tonight at 6 p.m. Here at Speak Resort. We shall be around the poolside, and we shall have a great interface with the shoreline. So we are looking forward to that. And the annual general meeting will be climaxed with the policy day at Makerere University, scheduled for 27 September at 9 to 1 p.m. I know that not all of us will be there because some of us are going back. However, those that will attend, you will have an opportunity to tour Makerere University, see where we are, but most importantly, engaging in the policy day under the theme financing, green financing and capacity gaps, implications for energy access and transitions. I want to say that the program is very packed with a lot of engagements going up through 6 p.m. And then in addition, then we shall have our dinners. So let us just adjust to observe the time and be at the right time in the right place at the right time. Otherwise, I wish you all fruitful deliberations and a pleasant stay in Uganda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Edward. And you have already almost introduced our next speaker, the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe. And we have benefited so much from your support throughout this process. So we're so happy that you can also be at this occasion to open this meeting for the Global EFD Network. Please.
Your Excellency Maria Håkansson, the Ambassador of Sweden in Uganda, Mr. Mafumbo, the Commissioner representing the Minister of Water and Environment, our friends and colleagues from Sweden and other parts of this small world, members of the university management, representatives of NGOs, government ministries and agencies, our keynote speakers, our sponsors, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by informing you or reminding you, some of you, that Makerere is celebrating 100 years of excellent service to humanity this year. Having opened its doors to only 14 students in 1922, who are all men, and had the motto, "Let us be men." Makerere University has grown to become one of the most prestigious universities in Africa and the world. And in the 50s, after admitting the first female students, changed her motto to, "We build for the future." A series of celebrations, including inaugural lectures, offers a chance to look beyond and see how to leverage the 100 years of excellence in building a transformed society. This EFD annual conference resonates very well with the many activities that lead to the climax of the centennial celebrations of our great institution. Makerere University was admitted to the Environment for Development Network in Hanoi, Vietnam on 5th November 2018. We are proud to be part of the global network of environmental economics research centers, solving the world's most pressing environmental and development challenges through policy-relevant research, capacity development, and policy engagement. In spite of being new in the network, Makerere University was greatly honored to be entrusted with a noble duty of hosting on the shores of Lake Victoria, one of the largest and most vibrant conferences in the Global South. This annual conference is unique to the EFD network because it is the very first real-life conference after 2 years of virtual conferences following the COVID-19 pandemic that greatly devastated the world. As Makerere University, we are thankful for this wonderful opportunity. Since we are discussing environment for development, let me say something about Lake Victoria, because I have said we are seated on the shores of Lake Victoria. The local name of Lake Victoria is Naruvale. Now, Naruvale, Professor Barry, you'll correct me if I have interpreted wrongly, means where the gods reside. Now, there must be a reason why the people called the lake Naruvale, or the home of the gods. Because this lake is the reason why there are more than 100 million living in its basin. And it must be protected. Because when it disappears, of course it will disappear one day, but we don't want it to disappear in our lifetime or even in a few thousands of years. Then there will be no life around this area. And so we must all do everything necessary to protect the environment in this area because, as you are all aware, Uganda's population and the populations of the 3 major East African countries that surround the lake are simply exploding. Uganda's population is now 45 million, and in 50 years it is projected to be 200 million. Now that is frightening. Will that lake sustain that population? Through the EFD Global Hub, Makerere University has been connected to other wonderful collaborations such as the Inclusive Green Economy Program for senior civil servants and policymakers in Eastern Africa in collaboration with the University of Gothenburg Center for Sustainable Development. In the same vein, we are eagerly waiting for the kickoff of Resilience and Adaptation Mainstreaming Program, a long-term capacity building program for MDAs to integrate climate risk considerations into their macroeconomic, fiscal, public, financial management, procurement, and other processes and research. And I must say I have been delighted to watch how Professor Barry and his team are going to the communities, especially around Lake Victoria, the communities that live on the shores of Lake Victoria, sensitizing them about the need to protect the environment. I have already signed an MOU for the university network established to address these issues, whose secretariat is at the School of African Studies, University of London. And we're also holding several engagements with the World Resources Institute. We thank you, EFD Global Hub, for all these initiatives. The EFD Marc Center has continuously received funding and equipment from the EFD Global Hub to support its administrative and research activities. This has widely contributed towards connecting the center's researchers and academicians to policymakers and implementers, a relationship which previously was very feeble. We can now at least attest to a number of policy engagements that the center has conducted, of which some have already resulted in tangible policy reforms and good outcomes. We want to thank the Global Hub for its role towards challenging this landscape where we can now collaborate effectively with the government officials for research activities, policy discussions, and uptake. I need to inform the participants that Makerere University has a new strategic plan which seeks to make the university more research-led. And the reason we are doing this is we think we must be at the center of looking for solutions for the challenges that face our region, especially in the face of the high population growth coupled with the climate change. And as you are all aware, all studies show that this region, so-called Great Lakes region, will be the worst affected by climate change because rivers and small lakes are drying up at a very fast rate. And we are beginning to see semblances of what people have been saying, the water wars that will begin from this region. I have carefully studied the conference program, and I am convinced that the 5 days are going to be used in several fruitful engagements that are intended to find solutions to the most pressing environmental problems affecting our continent. The capacity building programs, keynotes, collaborative programs, and the various themes in the breakaway sessions are all very important and well thought out. Finally, the Makerere University management is committed to providing support to the EFD Marc Center. Our aim is to help the center transform into a center of excellence in environmental economics research, capacity building, and policy engagement activities. And we really look forward to the EFD Global Hub to support us in those efforts. I thank you and wish you fruitful deliberations. And as we say, our motto, as we build for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, as has been clearly stated here by the previous speakers, EFD is all about making a difference and bringing research to policy. That's one of all the reasons why we're so happy and pleased here to welcome, to give some opening remarks, Mafumbo Julius, Assistant Commissioner at the Ministry of Water and Environment. You have been here representing the Honorable Sam Chepturis, Minister of Water and Environment, Government of Uganda. And so the floor is yours. We're so happy to have you here because that's what really, really matters.
Thank you very much, MC. Your Excellency, the Ambassador, the Swedish Ambassador to Uganda, the Vice Chancellor, Makerere University, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, the Director, EFD, Global Hub, the principals and deans of Makerere University, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies from the Honorable Minister. He had a number of engagements and he was not able to be with us here. He had actually wanted to be here, and it's just at the last minute that he decided that I should come and be here with you. I want to deliver his message, and here it goes. The Ministry of Water and Environment is happy that Makerere University is collaborating with EFD, a global network of environmental economic research centers to solve environmental and development challenges. This is a very big opportunity for Uganda, given the increasingly unprecedented challenges Uganda is experiencing. Uganda has been experiencing increasing disasters, including floods, landslides, droughts, with a lot of impacts. Lives, big investments, people's livelihoods are being destroyed because of the disasters that are ravaging the country. This has been attributed to a number of factors, including poor planning or lack of it, inadequate information, poverty, and in some cases, impunity, among others. People are settling in highly fragile ecosystems, on steep mountains, wetlands, riverbanks, lake shores, leading to degradation of these ecosystems, and consequently having these disasters. We are experiencing disasters we're experiencing as a country. Uganda relies heavily on the environment and natural resources for its development. Unfortunately, we do not seem to know how to use them correctly. A lot of investments are not informed by research, and therefore are prone to environment disasters. Studies show that wetlands, for instance, have declined significantly from 15.6% in 1994 to 8.9% in 2017. They've only increased recently to 8.9%. They've only increased recently to 8.9% due to the rising water levels, but they were at 8.4. The national forest cover decreased from 24% in 1995 to 9.5 in 2017. And there's been a slight increase to 12% in 2020, and this is a result of growing of artificial trees. So this is something that we cannot be proud of, because the natural forests are declining, and we are only having the artificial trees that are being planted. The rate of encroachment on steep slopes, riverbanks, lake shores, rangelands have not been documented well, and we do not have a clear picture of the status, but I don't think there is a difference in the trend. They are also declining. If this trend continues, we are likely to lose a lot of our ecosystems, lives, money, investments, and our very source of livelihood, especially in the face of climate change. The Ministry of Water is doing its best to ensure that natural ecosystems are restored, protected, and maintained. A national restoration action plan to guide restoration of degraded ecosystems in Uganda was prepared and approved by Cabinet and awaits implementation. Policies and laws have been reviewed to reduce these threats to the ecosystems. But of course, we shall see when we begin the implementation. Awareness is being created countrywide, but of course, we still have a problem of communities who are very poor and are relying heavily on the natural ecosystems. However, this action plan and whatever I've mentioned are not enough to prevent the environmental and natural resources degradation in the country. Uganda is hungry for development, so they're competing sectors, all competing for land and therefore encroaching on fragile ecosystems. Because wetlands, forests, and other protected ecosystems are regarded as not owned, there's a lot of encroachment that continues. And this is why we have this degradation. Decisions by a number of developers are taken to use these protected areas, and without considering the ecological and hydrological values of these ecosystems. And therefore, they're not looking at the long-term contribution of these ecosystems. The quality, while still Uganda does not seem to have many environment economists, and to inform policy decisions and use of these natural ecosystems are left to politics. So it's the politicians who make most of the decisions, and therefore there is a lot of decisions that do not look at the long-term impacts. Makerere University, in collaboration with EFD, have come at the right time, and we think that we think that carrying out more research in order to bring out the ecological and hydrological values of these ecosystems is important for decision makers and can help in improving on the use and management of these ecosystems. Training more Ugandans in environmental economics so that the country has a critical mass which will inform decisions at all levels. Already we have natural environment officers at district level, but they are not informed in these areas. So we think that if there is a possibility of building capacity, we could target those groups of people so that they're able to support decision-making at those levels. There is need for Makerere University and its networks to strengthen collaboration with the Ministry of Water and Environment to identify problems to be addressed. Of course, we already know a lot of these problems, but if we interacted with the Makerere University, they'll be able to pick on these research areas. So ladies and gentlemen, the world is embracing evidence-based decision-making, but Uganda is still lagging behind because we do not have adequate information, and therefore this collaboration with EFD, between Makerere and EFD, will go a long way in supporting this. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Water and Environment is very much in support of evidence-based decision-making, but lacks the means to achieve this. It will therefore heavily lean on Makerere University and its networks to achieve these objectives. And finally, I want to thank Makerere University for the invitation, SIDA for the support, and wish you the best as you proceed in this meeting. With that, I would like to declare the meeting open. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sir Julius. Thank you so much. This is what it's all about. This is the environment we are dealing with, and it's very obvious that we as environmental economists can make a great contribution. Truth be told, there wouldn't have been any EFD network if it hadn't been for Swedish tax money. So we are very, very happy and proud to be here today with Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Sweden for Uganda, Maria Håkansson. Thank you so much for being here and for helping us open this meeting.
Thank you very much, and I'm honored to be here both as a Swedish taxpayer and as the representative of Sweden in Uganda. Assistant Commissioner here representing the Honorable Minister of Water and Environment, Vice Chancellor Professor Nawangwe, Director of EFD Mac Center Professor Mbale, and of course Director also of Environment for Development in Gothenburg, Gunnar, Köhlin. And ladies and gentlemen, and the whole EFD family, it's a real pleasure to stand here and welcome you all to Uganda and address you here today for the opening of the annual meeting for the EFD network. The Embassy of Sweden in Uganda is very happy that EFD chose to arrange the first in-person annual meeting after COVID here in Uganda. I think the timing, obviously, also as the Vice Chancellor, when Makerere University is celebrating 100 years, could not have been better. Uganda is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. It's been blessed with an abundance of wildlife, birds, and plants. But the amazing biodiversity in Uganda is under severe threat from polluting of the air, soil, and water, from destruction of habitats, deforestation, diminishing wetlands, and climate change. And this country and its people depend heavily on natural resources and the ecosystem services nature provides. Uganda, like most developing countries, contributes little to global emissions, but is very vulnerable to the negative impacts of climate change and extreme weather. Climate change and its effects is a huge threat, not only to the country's fragile ecosystems and people's livelihood, but ultimately to the national economic development efforts. Poverty and climate change is closely interconnected. It's estimated that climate change can push an additional 130 million people into poverty over the next 10 years, wiping out years of development. EFD Uganda is one of the newest members of the EFD network, or the EFD family, as it's often called, but already very relevant and useful research, such as analysis of the socioeconomic benefits of electrification in Uganda and the role of indigenous peoples and local communities in conservation, has been published. And policymakers now have the responsibility to make sure that this research is used in decision-making. To address the problems we are facing, states need to put science at the center of their actions. We need initiatives, such as EFD, to bridge the gap between research and policy. Climate change cannot be addressed with simple or individual solutions. It requires collaboration and knowledge sharing across interest groups and across borders. The environmental challenges countries face around the world are interrelated and must be dealt with jointly. A global network of knowledge exchange, such as EFD collaborative programs, has the potential to inform policies around the world. In Kampala, we can learn from EFD Colombia how to reduce air pollution. We can learn from EFD Chile how to reduce marine pollution, and we can learn from EFD South Africa how to nudge people to use less water. We have a lot of difficulties ahead, both in Uganda and globally, but there are also opportunities. Green innovations and methods have the potential to cut emissions and contribute to sustainable development by creating green jobs. In the years to come, it will be very interesting to follow the research by EFD and others on decarbonizing economic development in sub-Saharan Africa and learn how to enhance the green economy in Uganda and the region. Swedish Development Cooperation has a long-term and strong commitment to environment, climate change, and biodiversity. And in Uganda, the Embassy of Sweden works with a broad range of actors, including the government, civil society, academia, private sector, and multilaterals, to increase the resilience to climate change and to protect and promote sustainable use of natural resources and ecosystem services in Uganda. Together with the World Bank, Sweden supports the Uganda Wildlife Authority and National Forestry Authority to protect and restore forests and wildlife in the Albertine region. And the Assistant Commissioner actually mentioned that after a long negative trend, the trend when it comes to forestry is now actually a bit more positive again. Through FAO, local governments and communities receive capacity development to mitigate and adapt to climate change and to protect important watersheds in the Karamoja and West Nile regions. And the Embassy also supports several programs that aim to reduce the dependency on fuel wood for cooking, as it's a major driver of deforestation in Uganda, not to mention its negative health impact on people. And I'm glad to announce that I recently had the honor to sign an agreement for a Green Schools initiative, and the purpose of this initiative is to raise awareness and understanding of climate change and environmental degradation within schools in Uganda, while empowering academic institutions and school-going children to take an active role in the solutions to environmental challenges involving young people in the fight against climate change and to protect the environment is key to progress. I know you are all environment economists. I think that there will be a lot of talk of numbers these coming days. And with that in mind, I would like to end with an inspirational quote from Ugandan climate activist Vanessa Nakate, also recently honored as one of UNICEF's ambassadors globally. Climate change is more than statistics. It's more than data points. It's more than net zero targets. It's about the people. It's about the people who are being impacted right now. I wish you all a productive and interesting annual meeting. I was told in the car by a very insightful source that this is one of the best network. I think she even said the best network that SIDA and us Swedish taxpayers are supporting. So we have huge expectations on you these days. And I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that what you do here and what comes out also then reach the decision makers and have the impact on people. So thank you very much and have a wonderful days here in the Pearl of Africa. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you all for all these inspirational words. Can we have the slides up? I want to make a small transition from the opening ceremony to the presentation of the collaborative program. And just like the ambassador challenged us, I want to kind of bring you in on the challenges that I've also faced. I want to acknowledge Linnea Hermansen, who's in the room and who has been matching us and really been extremely supportive and constructively critical also to what we're doing. So when there wasn't a COVID, or during COVID, we couldn't have an annual meeting. Of course, Linnea asked us, okay, well, that's also good because then there's less traffic, less air transport. So how many tons of carbon dioxide do you not emit? So we had to go back and calculate. And so an annual meeting, and of course, as we said, this is the biggest and best conference on environment and development economics in the world. So it brings a lot of people. So it's about 225 tons of carbon dioxide being emitted for having people come here. And so we have to make a difference. So what we did an evaluation of the outcome of the real-life meeting in Bogota, Colombia. We were locked into the hotel there. Nobody could go outside the hotel because of the riots, of course. So it was very, very intense. And then we had the annual meeting after that. So you see here the blue ones are the real life meetings, and the green ones is when we don't fly. So did you make any valuable contacts during the meeting? So basically everybody, had many or some valuable contacts when it was a real life meeting. And while some did it during the virtual meeting, but 71% said, no, not really. So contacts, right? Second question, did you come up with any new research ideas during the meeting? When you meet, 77% said yes, 18% said no. When you didn't meet, it was like 50-50 between coming up with research ideas or not. Final question here. Did you discuss future collaborations with other participants during the meeting? And during the live meeting, 80% said yes, and during the virtual meeting, about 76% said no. So it's like black and white, right? Which is really the challenge to you, the challenge that Linnea gave me, and this is the biggest meeting we've ever had. We've saved money during COVID, we brought you all together here. Let's make it worth it, just like the ambassador said. Let's make it worth it, work hard, think, get to know each other, have fun, come up with new ideas, and make a difference. That's all we're asking. And the best way to do that is, of course, through our collaborative programs. So now I bring it over to Alejandro, who will introduce the collaborative programs, and I don't know how we're doing on time. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Gunnar. And if we can put the other presentation, please. Yeah. So as Gunnar said, I mean, we're really excited of being here, in this annual meeting. We have been working very hard during the last year and a half with the different collaboratives. All the collaborative leaders and the members of the collaboratives have been working really hard to have this transition where the collaboratives went back to the local countries, to the EFD centers in different countries around the world. And what you're going to hear today is the new ideas from these collaborative programs. They will talk a little bit about what they've been doing, but mostly what they want to do in the future. So this is an invitation for all the network to get more involved with the different collaborative programs. So again, you will hear a very brief introduction of what the collaborative programs are about. But this is not the end. I mean, this is just an opening for the open sessions that we will start having today. Today we will have the first open session of a collaborative program with EPfD in the afternoon, and that will happen during the rest of the days and on Monday in the morning. So yeah, we are very happy of the results of the collaborative program so far, but we believe that given the great quality of all of you in terms of research and policy engagement, that we can get much more from the collaborative programs. And this is what we are aiming for with this new version of the collaborative programs. So thanks. Yeah, so I'm here you're here not for me, you want to hear from the leaders of the collaborative programs. So we are gonna start with this amazing set of people. What I will ask to each one of the presenters is that after you give your presentation, you click on the next one so the next leader of the collaborative knows when to come, and I don't have to keep presenting people. So.
Okay, thank you. Am I supposed to stand up there, or I can stay here? Okay, great. So first of all, distinguished guests, dear all, greetings from Vietnam. Our hosting institution is University of Economics in Ho Chi Minh City, and Nam couldn't come because he was called for. So I'm representing the program, and I also like to mention my colleague from Vietnam, Thong, who is part of this program. So our program is about blue resources for development. And let's see if this works. Yeah, quick look at the outline. What we wanted to say here in a few minutes, so I'll run to the next one. And basically, there are a lot of challenges. There are energy demands, there are climate change, and food security. And we have a focus on like 3 broad areas about fisheries and aquaculture, about managing marine and coastal resources, and both these areas kind of generate a lot of interest in marine spatial planning, which could include a lot of activities. And so the overall aim for us is to contribute in various aspects to Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is called Life Below Water, but it's in water, above water, and so on. We did a little SWOT analysis, and maybe it's not strategic to talk about the weaknesses, but I actually think it's interesting to mention only 2 points here. And one is, I mean, one of the fundamental reasons behind why Environmental for Development was started, and it's basically that all these talented researchers within this room that you see, they are all the time being asked to do a lot of other stuff than doing research. And I think that was the major driver when Gunnar once initiated this whole process. The other part is about doing multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research. And here we are at different stages, but like mentioned earlier, most, if not all of us, are environmental economists or economists. And we are kind of at some kind of crossroads. I mean, should we stay within economics, or should we really work together with other disciplines? I mean, I think many of the programs have done really great efforts in that area. We've, taken small steps in our program, I would say. Here is a graphic presentation of various parts of our efforts that are really important. I will only say a few words about the policy engagement, and I think that is an area where we often really shine within EFD. I think when we started working with Colombia, when we started working with Ghana, we have from day one have intense interaction with policymakers, governmental bodies in charge of the policies and major decisions regarding management of these marine and aquatic resources. And I think particularly Colombia is very nice because people there that we involved had pretty weak background in that particular area, but had a strong, excellent training in economics. And so it was natural with that collaboration, but it also meant that we got the policymakers on board. And so I think that's something that I really like to mention. Ghana is another example where Wisdom Wakbalo is kind of an institution in Ghana nowadays. So nothing happens in fisheries unless they talk to Wisdom. And I mean, I think that's great, but we want to be even broader and even bigger. So yeah, this is just about various things we do. I'm probably using up too much time. I just want to mention international collaboration. I mean, of course, we are a global network, but it's also, like I mentioned, should we take a further step towards working with other disciplines? And we kind of recently, 4 months ago, submitted a big application to Canadian IDRC, which was relating to climate change and management of marine resources. And that case we passed the first hurdle and allowed to submit a second round application that will seriously involve other disciplines in order to be granted the funding from them. Is there anything more to say? Yeah, what we have done. I mean, we've done a lot of research within the area of managing fisheries. We have done special issues of various journals. We have had a special issue of the Marine Resource Economics, leading journal in the field, where we focused on challenges in the global south. And yeah, one paper from that issue was selected an outstanding article, of the year. So we're proud of that too. And recently, the leading environmental economics journal, the Review of Environmental Economics and Policy, had a major feature section on managing of aquatic resources, and 4 of us from the program were part of 2 of the articles that was published in that. So I think time is coming to an end. I just wanted to show a few titles also from our center in Vietnam, who has been very productive and very rich in their output. So I think by that, I give the floor to the next speaker, and Alejandro has to tell me who it is. Oh, it works. It's probably Jan then.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to say a few words on the emissions pricing for development program. That is a little bit the new kid on the block here. So we had our first meeting in Bogota, basically the last time we met. So I'm very happy now to tell you a little bit more. And it's not only me, it's also Thomas and Sam who are also here, and a couple of other great people. But I actually would like to start a little bit with the question, why at EfD do we think that we should have a program on emissions pricing for development? Well, like, even though it is, of course, clear, particular to this audience, that if we basically look into the historical emissions, then most of emissions come from developed nations. But if we actually look into current emissions and what we need to reduce, then kind of the inconvenient truth is that like most of the emissions are already in low and middle income countries. If we look at today's emissions, and if we look into what is actually embedded in the infrastructure that is already constructed, that is already in the pipeline, then we talk about 80% of the emissions. So we think that we really need kind of to think how to get down these emissions, or to basically, as the ambassador also said, to basically kickstart like development pathways that do not depend on this kind of emissions intensive pathway of the past within this network of EfD. Of course, there are huge differences. So basically just taking all of the countries as I've done here, like all low and middle income countries into one pot is of course not necessarily true, because it is different whether we talk about Uganda, whether we talk about India, whether we talk about Indonesia or even China. In this program, we actually would like to take credit to this, but just before I come to this, I want to make the point that we see more and more emissions pricing initiatives also in countries, in low and middle income countries. Of course, it is important to recognize that like just having some emissions pricing mechanism in place is not necessarily telling us anything, because we are interested also in basically what exactly is the price, how high it is, what is the effective carbon rate, how does it actually play together with existing subsidies, etc., what is the transformative potential, and here I think is where the emissions pricing for development program can kick in. So of course there are extremely large challenges when it comes to emissions pricing, particularly when we think of low income countries, and I think Marc and SETI have a lot more to say about this, because we know that if we increase prices of fossil fuels in a country such as Uganda, for example, where a lot of people rely on firewood and charcoal, and we are actually quite happy that some of them use fossil fuels for cooking, then taxing those fuels might not be the best idea. So there might be kind of negative impacts as well, like just looking into how to get down emissions might not do the trick. So we actually need to have a broader welfare perspective, and this is actually something that we would like to do also in this program. So let me talk a little bit about four areas where we would like to talk about. Like one is kind of effectiveness of carbon pricing schemes. We know that we economists, like basically we say, well, like let's put a price on emissions, the Pigouvian tax, it is efficient, it will be effective, etc. But this is true actually from a theoretical point of view, that is usually not taking the particularities of markets in developing countries into account, including informal markets, including energy market structures, including cooking structures that I mentioned, etc. Including also like huge lobbying and powers and vested interests. All of these things are issues that we would like to look into. Then the second question is, of course, and Thomas in particular, me as well, have been concerned about this question for quite a while now, is to look into the distributional effects. If we have emissions pricing, who will be affected and how and why, and more importantly even how to design compensation schemes given institutional realities. So not only basically talking about some theoretical lump sum transfer, but also looking into what kind of transfers, cash transfers, schemes, etc. are, for example, already in place that we could use. Third, of course, is the question of acceptability. Under which circumstances are pricing policies acceptable for people and policymakers? What is the role of exposure to impacts? Are there new routes of analysis, for example, also using social media to understand discourses, etc.? And fourth, we would like to understand actually optimal emissions pricing policies also in the light of other externalities. Think of congestion, think of health, etc. So how do we do that? And it's a bit unfortunate that we cannot see everything, but anyway, like we would like to abstract from single country studies. We would like to collect kind of multi-country studies. We would like to engage also with you to set up multi-country comparisons. We would like to use various methods, so ranging from ex post policy assessment methods, micro simulations, demand systems, but also survey experiments and case studies, not to talk about, of course, also the possibility to apply and adapt numerical modeling infrastructures. We have multiple sessions actually at this conference where we present some existing work. Today at 4 p.m. we will have an open EPfD meeting. We will have, Gunnar is actually supposed to have a keynote on issues of this. At Sunday we have various EPfD sessions in the parallel sessions, particularly 2, 6, and 7. And on Monday we will have a collaborative meeting. And also in the name of Som and Thomas, I would like to say very welcome. Please join us, discuss with us how we can actually shape this initiative and get it going. Look very much forward to that. Thanks. So, Randy.
It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Forest Collaborative. So the Forest Collaborative started in the 2010s as a theme, and it really arose out of a variety of common interests. There was a lot of people within this network that were working on a variety of forest issues. So it really wasn't a stretch to kind of come together and think about things because we were all working in this area. I wanted to mention that I'm here today with, there's 4 coordinators of this collaborative, myself, Jintao Zhu, who's here today, as well as Yuanwan Yi at Peking University and Alan Blackman at Inter-American Development Bank. So what we wanted to do really was to create a community of practice where we could all kind of learn from each other and see kind of what types of things people were interested in and how this could relate to policy and research. And so, we're output oriented as well as community of practice oriented. So one of our first steps was to do a book focusing on forest tenure reform comparisons between Asia and Africa. And I edited that with Liz Robinson, then at the University of Reading, and there were a variety of authors. I think all the chapters had EFD members. And so we did that, and then in 2017 we became a collaborative, and Alan Blackman, who I mentioned, and I were the coordinators of that. didn't know there was this thing. So okay, so I'll have to keep a little bit more careful track here. We, in this collaborative, we really continued our focus on sort of joint outputs, but also wanted to keep this supportive research environment and this community practice. We had some work in progress presentations, coincidence with the ERI Annual Conference, as well as the World Congress held in Gothenburg in 2018, hosted by this group. And then we had meetings more or less every 6 months during those 3 periods. We also put together a special issue of World Development. So something came out, I think, of this community of practice and discussions. And that was published in 2021 and included 10 papers, and everybody all papers included EFD authors, of course. In Manchester, kindly hosted by Johan Oldekop, who I don't think is here today, the Forest Collaborative started looking for kind of what's the next thing that we wanted to work on? What's the next thing we could work on together? We kind of had done forest governance for a while and settled on forests and human health, and found that there was a lot of researchers who were working on this area. And this led to an accepted special issue proposal in environment and resource economics. That's being led by Matthias Piaggio, who's at IUCN, and Katrina Mullen from Montana, University of Montana, who's here today, and Joe Albers is the handling editor on that. And I'm really would like to push that if we've left anybody out, or if they've left anybody out, people haven't had a chance to submit, there's still time. October 15th is the deadline to submit for that. And so have a look on the ERI website and see if there's something that you would like to contribute to this special issue, high profile, high impact journal. So in terms of the current work, the host institution in 2020 moved to Peking University, so the leadership is really there, and Alan and I are supporting in this role. And we've established, or should say, Peking University, with some input from us, have established a steering committee, and a number of people are here today, 12-member committee, including myself. At this point in time, 2022, we have about 45 members who are somehow involved in the Forest Collaborative, and have been really a major focus has been assisting on this forest and human health. I did have a slide here on future plans, so let me just mention that without the aid. Is it? Is it? Oh, sure enough. Okay. So we're cognizant that we're in the decade of UN decade of ecosystem restoration, and so we want to be part of that in the Forest Collaborative, and so been thinking about this, and Peking University took lead on a 5-year strategic plan for the Forest Collaborative, and so identified 5 areas of potential work. And so what we're going to try to do with input from you and with leadership from you is to kind of think what's the next step. Forest and human health is going to continue, but we want to be moving in the next direction, and so that's what we're hoping to do. We have our collaborative meetings are on Monday, so open meeting in the morning and the closed meeting in the afternoon, not so closed really. If anyone would like to join, you're very welcome to do it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe I'll go up. Well, I can't see my slides at all. I'll come back.
No, when you start, they will put it.
Okay, right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just going to introduce the Natural Capital Collaborative, which we've introduced recently. Yeah. So, 2020 was a very important year for the we founded, oh, I'm sorry, it's not working right. Hmm? All right. Sorry about that. Yes, I think there is. I'll look here. Okay. So we founded our NatCap collaborative in 2021 following on from our previous collaborative, which was the Ecosystem Services Accounting for Development program, which ended in 2020. And it was an incredibly successful program, and so that gave us the impetus to move forward with the same thematic area. That collaborative program investigated methods for valuing a range of ecosystem services. It involved researchers from then all of the EFD centers that we had at the time, and came up with some very innovative papers on valuing pollination, on urban recreational value, and of green open space, and on the value of water quality amelioration. And those papers are still coming out. And I think one of the most recent ones is actually on the value of urban open space in Kampala, for which there's not a lot of green park space available. So we found our base at the University of Cape Town because the researchers there have got strong interests in natural capital sort of thematic areas, and a long history of research in areas relevant to this theme. So we came up with a mission statement for our collaborative, being to advance the understanding of and generate empirical research, knowledge, and capacity on the value of investing in biodiversity and ecosystem services, on sustainable water ecosystems and sustainable agriculture in the Global South, and on the effective design of policy measures for achieving this. Right. So our goals are to stimulate policy action across the Global South and implement research-based sustainable practices, and also to promote interlinked research within the EFD centers and with researchers outside of the EFD network. So I was thinking, how do we position ourselves within the EFD network? I mean, natural capital is at the core of everything that we do, of everything that all the collaboratives are doing. Natural capital is serving through ecosystem services, a range of sectors, and we have lots of sectoral interests in our community. So when we do natural capital accounting, what we're trying to do is quantify the impacts of natural capital on economic outputs and on inclusive wealth. But at the same time, by accounting over time, we're showing what's happening when we degrade our natural capital due to the pressures which are represented by the grey arrows coming into those sectors. And so part of the work that we do is also to come up with policy measures and policy design for addressing those pressures. So our focus for the Natural Capital Collaborative is not to repeat what's going on in the individual collaboratives which deal with, say, forestry, energy, air quality, fisheries, etc., but to look at the picture as a whole, accounting for everything in full cost accounting, to inform planning and policy development around natural capital. But we also have specific areas of interest in our center, which we will also focus on, and those are around water, wildlife and tourism, and agriculture and biotrade. So those are the areas that the collaborative will focus on. And we've come up with 3 research streams. Biodiversity and ecosystem services, which includes the wildlife component, sustainable water systems, and sustainable agriculture. We came up with those 3 streams because all of them are just such huge areas. So just to quickly talk about what we're hoping to do in each of these themes. In our biodiversity and ecosystem services stream, we're wanting to promote the mainstreaming of biodiversity in sectoral policies in the Global South through research into valuation and accounting for ecosystem services, so expanding on the work that we've already been doing, and looking at its application in policy, planning, and decision making. So in fact, we're already quite heavily involved in that kind of work over several parts of Africa, and in fact, we, together with other people here, are involved in completing the ecosystem accounts for Uganda. So the second one is to stimulate increased investment in ecological infrastructure and nature-based solutions through research into the design and impacts of measures and financing mechanisms. And the third is to promote the importance of strengthening institutions, especially in wildlife use and conservation. So all of that is hopefully contributing towards the Sustainable Development Goal 15. In our water theme, the aim here is to promote equitable solutions for addressing water demand through behavioral economics principles and tariff structures. So here our centers, and working with other centers, have also been very active in the last few years in doing projects on water pricing. We've just completed several studies in Cape Town, and we have a big proposal on the go, which I think we'll hear more about at the session on water. Then second, to develop novel strategies that strengthen urban and rural water systems' resilience to climate change and human activity. And third, to stimulate sustainable approaches for the development and protection of natural and artificial water infrastructure. So this is where there's obviously a strong connection between natural capital valuation and water management and nature-based solutions. So these are very overlapping areas, which is why it fits that they're together. The third theme or stream is sustainable agriculture, and this theme will focus on producing and disseminating rigorous research on benefits of sustainable agricultural production systems, and investigating and promoting methods that increase the uptake of adaptive practices like diversification or soil conservation to mitigate risks and increase resilience to climate change. So that's it. We have a small committee at the moment responsible for those streams and overall progress with the collaborative. We're still fairly new, and we look forward to meeting prospective collaborators on the 25th in our session. Thanks.
Yeah, just a quick thing about the NatCap. As you saw, there are 3 different themes, and they will have their session on Sunday, and they will have actually 3 different sessions. So no, you will see that in the program, but there will be separate sessions for each one of the themes that NatCap has.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Alejandro, for giving us this opportunity to present a scope to the EFD community. In this collaborative group, we are committed to deliver policy-relevant research outputs and also to develop capacities in countries in the Global South to achieve sustainable consumption and production. One important task within this collaborative group is to identify and to promote policies that can help different stakeholders to make transformative changes towards sustainable lifestyles, food waste, and also for the implementation of the principles of the circular economy concept. As a motivation for the work that we do, I can mention that some of the major crises today, such as climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, are associated to unsustainable consumption and production patterns. Precisely because of this, the global society has defined SDG number 12 as a way to ensure responsible consumption and production. But what does it mean in more detail? Well, sustainable consumption and production is about doing more and better with less. It is also about decoupling economic growth from environmental degradation, increased resource efficiency, and promoting sustainable lifestyles. So having this context in mind, and also with having the logic of a theory of change, the overarching goal of SCOPE is the following. We want to identify leverage points or policy entry points and policies that can help trigger and enable transformative changes for different stakeholders, consumers, producers, organizations. And with these policies, we hope that countries in the global south will be on track for the achievement of SDG 12. In a more practical way, we organize our work in 3 broad but overlapped themes. The first one is food waste, and in this case, we are identifying incentives that can promote sustainable food consumption at home and at the hospitality sector. The second broad theme is related to sustainable lifestyles, and in this case, we are also trying to identify the incentives for the promotion of sustainable practices in fashion, travel, and tourism. And here, in both cases, for identifying incentives, many of the colleagues working in this collaborative, we are working with different behavioral economic tools to identify different incentives that can be used to promote this type of practices. And finally, in the circular economy component, one of the main tasks that we have is to identify and propose different policy instruments that can be used to promote the reduction, the reuse, and recycle in general. And we are analyzing a broad range of policy instruments, such as, in general, prices, fiscal instruments, such as taxes, subsidies, but also command and control, nudges, among others. And one interesting example of our work here is related to the identification of policies for reducing the impact of single-use plastics. And last but not least, this is the group of people that has been working hard to define the objectives and the strategy for SCOPE. However, we do recognize that we need the help and the collaboration of many of you. So we kindly invite you to join this collaborative. We kindly invite you to attend our open session next Saturday. We will discuss further on research questions, possibilities for networking, fundraising, and of course, ways to increase our engagement with policymakers. So thank you very much.
Is that microphone working? Yes, good. Okay, so I'm going to try up here because Maria wants me to. And this is a bit like flying blind because I can't see the slides at all. But they are there. Okay, so, and Marcella should be up here, but she has a bad cough, so I'm standing in for SETI the Sustainable Energy Transitions Initiative. And you know, the metaphor of flying blind is a good one here because SETI was basically motivated. It was created to confront this major challenge that we have, that we realize that the energy transition has to happen. But that transition is going to be disruptive. There's no real template for development that follows a sustainable energy pathway that exists. So SETI is really about trying to figure out what we can learn from countries trying this transition. And the vital point is that collaborative work is really important in this, in comparative work. So now SETI is in its 7th year, started in 2015. We began our work essentially by creating a network within a network. And this network within a network was really around this particular theme. We held a number of meetings, had sponsored some special issues in journals, worked on conference proposals and session proposals, did a number of attempts at policy interaction, which have yielded some really important lessons, and wrote on joint research proposals to get funding for interesting and important research questions. So SETI in this first phase really became a vibrant network. We have a long mailing list of people who subscribe who are not only in EFD, so the network kind of extends outside of EFD, and we bring all of this diverse expertise to bear on these important and difficult questions. All right, so in our first phase, we did have some specific goals, and those goals were around 4 different areas. The first area was to create a network of scholars that would be working collaboratively on this problem. We wanted to develop a research strategy that would come out of taking stock of what was known about energy transitions and how sustainable energy transition could be supported. We wanted to engage in policy interaction in that first phase. Slide hadn't advanced, which I noticed here. Okay, and then so the final point was creating capacities within this network based on understanding joint research, learning new methods, etc. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see here some of the themes that emerged from that taking stock exercise that really informed our research strategy moving forward. So not all of our work today is in these areas, but certainly the concentration of the work is, and we're constantly adding new themes or problems to the questions that we're answering. So our current structure has basically 3 main components. There's the collaborative leadership, which is a co-leadership between the University de Concepción in Chile, based in Chillán, and Duke, where I'm based. And we get a lot of support from the Global Hub as well. Then we have a steering committee. The steering committee has representation from the different EFD regions and countries. And there's also a local team of researchers in Chile who work very closely with the administrative coordination staff there, which is sort of the third element of our structure. And in phase 2, in phase 2 of our work, we are hoping to develop these partnerships further, but we're really kind of interested in doing more comparative work. So this is the real value added of the EFD network, is to do comparative work. So that means writing comparative proposals that try to leverage multi-country investigations of particular themes and topics. And this is an invitation to anyone in this room thinking about sustainable energy transitions problems to reach out. You can reach out to us directly as the leadership of the collaborative, or you can reach out to the collection of researchers who are in different SETI sessions to talk about ideas. And the goal of these ideations is to really come up with a series of proposals that would leverage multi-country learning. So that's an invitation and also an opportunity. As an example, there are 2 examples that I would raise of this that we're working on right now. Out of the IDRC project that the Global Hub has been leading, there has been an energy sector chapter, and that exercise is helping IDRC to form its research strategy on inclusive low-carbon energy transitions. So we have opportunities as a network to then do work on some of those areas, and just recently, a group out of University of Cape Town was leading a proposal, multi-country proposal, just on this type of theme. And applying to an IDRC research call to do that type of work. Another example is that we have a peer learning project, so EFD is supporting peer learning efforts, and we have a peer learning project around renewable energy-based agricultural technology for climate adaptation. So technologies like solar irrigation, solar cooling, and evaluating those and the effects that they have on agricultural livelihoods and incomes, as well as contributing to climate resilience. So those are 2 examples, but we would really like to work on other types of comparative projects that are in multiple countries. And a critical point here is that these multi-country projects, I'm involved in several of them, are incredibly transaction cost intensive. And so nobody can do them except a network like EFD, right? Because they're already transaction cost intensive, but we at least can reduce those transaction costs with the network that we have here. Other groups cannot do these very easily, so that is our comparative advantage, and that's what we should be leveraging in the future. So we have some opportunities. My slides are gone, but that doesn't, we have some opportunities to meet people here. There will be a collaborative planning session on Monday where we'll talk about our strategic vision for the 2nd phase. I encourage people to come to that. There are plenty of SETI sessions with papers, and I'll stop there.
They will put it now.
Sometimes it comes, sometimes not.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very...
It's there, it's there.
Now is it?
Yes, the second one.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now is it?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
You went too far. No, you're the other way.
I'm the other way?
No, the other button. You're going backwards.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah, you're on SETIs.
Should I keep talking about SETI?
Now you're good.
Okay, I don't see this here, but anyway. So this is a different collaborative. It's somehow cross-cutting with to the others. But anyway, now it is a fact that women economists are underrepresented in the academia and that we actually face glass ceilings in our careers. Because of this, there's so many questions that are not being asked. There's some approaches and perspectives that are not taken into account, and because of this, We Need was born, founded by Pamela Jagger and Erin Sealis, and now hosted at the EFD Columbia. So basically, we want to increase women participation and representations in high quality research. We want more women doing research, publishing, and being at the center of the discussions. And that's why our main objective is to promote women leadership and enhance their capacity research. As a second stage of our objective in a long-term strategy, we want to do more research with a gender perspective. But on this first stage, we just want to promote women leadership in the EFD network. So what did we do during the pandemic? Our first task was to identify who were these women, what are they doing, at what stage of their career they are, and what are their fields, the fields that they're working. So we built a database with all women researchers in the EFD centers, but also we include other women that might be actually potentially interested in being part of this network. Also, we collect important evidence of the obstacles and bias of women in academia. So we wrote an important diagnosis of the obstacles that women are facing and actually what have been done to overcome these obstacles. So what is coming in the next few years, in the next 2 years, actually? First, we want, of course, to strengthen our network and the collaborations between the researchers of the EFD members. So we're planning to strengthen this networking and research exchange of we need researchers. Actually, we have our first visitors to EFD Columbia coming in the next weeks from India. She's gonna, during her visit, she's going to present her work. She's gonna work with one of our colleagues, and she also is gonna give a talk to our undergraduate students about women and economics in India. The second part of what is our next plan is to enhance this research capacity. For that, we're gonna start running a mentorship program and writing workshops in Latin America first, in Latin America, and then we're gonna move to Africa and Asia. We're gonna focus, of course, on women EFD researchers. And finally, our meeting in the annual meeting is gonna happen tomorrow. You are all welcome from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. What are we gonna do there? First, we're gonna talk about all these barriers that we have found that women are facing in academia. We're gonna show our findings. And second, we're gonna also talk a little bit more about how is women's participation in the different EFD centers. We're gonna show some statistics that we have gathered, thanks to Alejandro, about EFD's grants and calls, and in general, representations of women in the different EFD centers. And then we're gonna open the discussions to the rest of the participants to actually listen to other experiences. And this is the perfect opportunity also to ask how we can help your own research and your own center, your different centers. How you think that we can actually help and get involved in the different centers to increase this women's participation and representations. So finally, just to invite you all, of course, women are very much welcome, but we also want to, I want to stress that men are very much welcome tomorrow as well to our session.
Yeah, so that's it, and you're welcome. Remember to go to these open sessions, and now it's time for coffee. No? So thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you around.
Uganda is a fairy tale. You climb up, and at the end, there is a wonderful new world. Vegetation is different. Climate is different. And most of all, the people are different from anything elsewhere to be seen in the whole range of Africa.